Welcome to the Rocket Roof Show, where we equip fellow roofers to do more commercial business every first and third Thursday of the month. It's time to launch your business to the next level.
This is Project Command. Stand by power transfer.
3, 2, 1, blast off!
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Rocket Roof Show here. We're going to be talking with a lady that's an accountant named Donna from the great state of Washington. So I want to go ahead and introduce you, Donna. And if you want to just take a second to give us your background, what you do, your company name, and then we'll go from there.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me on the show. That was really a treat. So I actually do a lot of work with construction. So I was like, oh, sweet. Anyway, my name is Donna Febus, and I have a business that is called Integrity Business Advisors. So what my company does is we focus primarily on profitability with our clients. And so kind of from that advisory role, and there goes my cat. If you guys can see him, I try not to get him up here, but I told you what he does, you know.
We're pet friendly.
Yeah. Anyway, so we work with our customers to provide them with some clarity and confidence and help them build a path to move forward with their business. Set goals, you know, those milestones and objectives so that they have a roadmap from, you know, getting from where they are to where they might want to be. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of an all-encompassing thing. So we also touch on a little marketing, a little bit of sales, so more or less business management. So I've worn a lot of hats in the past, so I can kind of speak about several of the other things other than just accounting. So I've incorporated all of that into my offering. Okay. So I've been in business since 2011. I've got almost 30 years in the industry of accounting. So been around a while. I've been doing it since I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I started when I was still in high school, learned everything from the ground up, spent about 15 years in the transportation industry. And so since I've been in business for myself, I've had several contractors as clients. So. Okay.
Yeah. Just what you were saying about inefficiencies and being able to see exactly what's going on in your business, what's in your bank accounts, all that kind of stuff. I know, speaking from a contractor's point of view, that's about 90% of us. We don't have a clue. We know how to go out and make the money, but we don't have a clue what's going on once it gets put in the bank account. So yeah, and I actually asked you to kind of put it down a little bit on our level when we're talking today, because contractors, when you're talking to us, it's like, well, I don't want to sound dumb, so I'm not going to ask that question, or clarify that. So yeah, bear with me. So
as long as you don't test me on what fascia is, or
right, 3/4
nails, or whatever that hammer thing is,
Yeah. The test comes later. So
yeah.
So one question I wanted to ask you is, operating a business takes more than just knowing products and service. There's a lot of back end stuff, like in the office. And I know a lot of contractors I just soon stay out of the office, but it's a necessary evil, right? Like we have to pay attention to that. So can you speak on a few things that are paramount that the contractors have to look at, maybe like AR and AP, what those things are, payroll and.
Yes. So in my experience, the first thing I want to talk about is accounts receivable. And the reason being is because of what I've seen with my clients and what they've done when I first started working with them. It's almost as if contractors are a little bit notorious for not doing their billing. And on multiple occasions, I've seen where they will wait 2 or 3 months before they even invoice their customer. And what that does is it interrupts your cash flow. Mm-hmm. So then you'll find yourself in a kind of a difficult predicament. You have payroll, you have your own bills to pay. If you're kind of on your own, you might be pulling draws. Where are you going to draw from if you don't have money?
Yep.
So it's super important to be very, very timely with those receivables, because if you're not sending them out, you're not getting paid. And pretty soon what ends up happening is your bank account runs dry and you have no money in there. So what do people do? They're like, oh, I've got to use my credit card, or, oh, I need to go get a fast cash loan because I've got rent to pay, or I've got payroll to make, or whatever that might be. And so then they get into this, they're borrowing money and they're paying interest for what? They've got the money sitting there. All they have to do is bill it out. So it's always good to have, that done like immediately, because the sooner you get those invoices out, the sooner you're going to get paid, and you keep your operating cash flowing well. So that would be like one of the number one things that I would highly suggest contractors do.
I've never had a problem with that particular thing of invoicing people quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But so I didn't know that was a problem. I mean, I'm like, hey, I want my money, so I'm going to invoice. But in talking with a lot of guys, I've noticed like they have $15,000, $10,000, $8,000 here that they get so busy on the job, or some of them are just embarrassed to send the bill because, well, it's a big bill and the customer might, I don't know what's going through their head, but psychologically they don't send it out.
They end up talking themselves out of billing.
Yep.
It's a real hang up for a lot of people to get past the fact that someone owes you money and that you have to ask for it when you in fact earned it. And it's like you said, it's just a psychological thing. I'll give you a quick example. I had a client and he was a pool contractor. Okay. I met him because I had him build a pool for me, and we struck up a conversation, kind of hit it off. We became friends. And so he asked me to start taking care of his books. And so, I did. Well, turns out he didn't keep books. He kept folders and bins of papers. And so I ended up having to reconstruct his entire year. And he didn't know who owed him money. There were thousands of dollars that he never collected, never invoiced for, he never invoiced anyone. He just asked for checks. And in doing that, it makes it difficult to pay your sales and use tax, which we have here in Washington. Many other states do too. You've got Department of Revenues where, you have to pay. How are you going to do that if you don't know what you were paid or what your sales were? So
heaven forbid you get audited.
Right. And it just becomes this huge stress, especially for single business owners who don't have a team. They're trying to wear all these hats and do everything themselves. And pretty soon they're spiraling out of control because they got to do this so they can do this. And this thing over here is due like next week. And, I don't know what to do. So it's always a good habit to just stay current, is the best thing that you can do. And if you can't, you don't have time, then if you don't have the time and you're busy making money doing what you're good at, then it's time to find someone, to help you out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you find there's people that'll do it on the side, or they do multiple small businesses very efficiently and for not very much. Yep. So let's talk about job costing. Why should job costing be a priority for contractors? And do you have any tips for helping contractors do this?
Yeah, job costing is kind of important. It's really important because, that's what you're doing. You're bidding on jobs. And so you have to make sure that your costs are correct. You want to make sure that you have all the proper costing for all the materials that are going to, go into play, like for your roofing and the nails, any plywood, whatever that, I told you, I don't know these terms, that tarp stuff that you put down before you put the shingles down, and that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that you have a process that is capturing all of those costs, and because otherwise, when you're bidding out a job or you're costing a job, you're going to end up with a negative. And so then you also want to make sure that you're capturing your payroll, the taxes that you're paying. If you mark up your materials for say 10% or 5% to essentially pay you back for the time you spent on ordering it or picking it up, having to do with the billing, you know, with your back office. It helps pay for their salaries, that type of thing. You just want to make sure that you're billing it correctly and that you're capturing everything so that at the end of the day, you have a positive number down there on that bottom line.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It also helps so you don't mingle other jobs in with each other, right? Like, oh, well, I was a couple squares short. I'll just get them from the next job. And you don't even realize that you're actually stealing from the profit because you don't really track it. You know,
Yeah.
I've noticed that too. So.
Yeah, you know, you can get into a bad habit of doing stuff like that because you want to use up, say, leftovers or something.
Yep.
It just kind of makes it messy. I mean, I don't suggest throwing stuff out that's, you know, good product, but, you know, I don't know that it's ethical to do it and pay twice, you know, have somebody pay twice. I mean, return it if you have to. I believe in having, I'm a very organized and structured person, so I have to operate within that. And if I was doing that, I would go crazy because it's kind of similar to, you know, posting deposits against invoices that it doesn't go to. It just creates kind of a little bit of a disaster.
Yep.
So I like to keep, you know, jobs separate, period, you know, so that you have a good understanding of, well, oh, I had this much left over. Maybe I miscalculated, you know, or, you know, oh, I've got 2 left over. I'm glad that, you know, I screwed up on this one. I'll recoup there, or, you know, whatever that looks like. But yeah.
We'd like to take just a quick break to thank our sponsor, Top Roof Marketing, a full-service marketing group that specializes in the commercial roofing industry. If you're looking to boost the commercial side of your business, they have lots of ideas to connect you with building owners who are looking for help. Visit toproofmarketing.com. So
we were talking about outsourcing. You know, some people listen to the show. They might have somebody that's on staff, or maybe their husband or wife are doing it, but sometimes that's not an option for people. They're too small and they really do need to outsource. So what are some of the pros and cons to outsourcing your accountant versus hiring someone to your office?
Cons on having an outsourced person for your accounting. A big one for me would be that you don't have a person that is on site with you, you know, 40 hours a week. So you would be actually sharing that person with several other of their clients. And while they should be getting back to you in a reasonable amount of time and giving you the support that you need, they are not exclusively yours. And the other thing is that a person on staff, say you have an accountant on staff, that person is not going to carry their own errors and omissions insurance, whereas an outsourced person would. And so they would be covered underneath whatever insurance your company actually carries. So a pro to having an outsourced person, some of the ones that I consider pros are that the business owner actually saves money because you're paying for less hours. You might be paying a higher price for the expertise, but you're actually saving money because you're not paying 100%, you know, like for 2,080 hours a year. You're not paying any benefits. You're not paying any taxes on that person because they're paying all their own taxes. And that's a huge savings. You don't have to come up with additional office space or equipment, you know, computers, because often they can just use their own, depending upon, you know, if you are comfortable with a computer, how involved you want to be with your, you know, with your back office operations. They can either do it all or they can just do a piece. It's kind of whatever the comfort level is of the business owner. And they carry their own E&O insurance. So they are covered. So let's say they made an error on, you know, your tax accountant makes an error on your taxes. That would be something that would be covered underneath their insurance if they didn't cover it themselves. So
okay, cool. So let's talk about experienced and inexperienced. A lot of times in construction or in roofing, sometimes guys tend to hire people that are maybe not so experienced, and well, they'll just learn along the way. It's a little bit cheaper to get somebody that's inexperienced. How can having an inexperienced office staff or an accounting person lead to overall business trouble? Like, what kind of trouble can you get in?
You can get into a fair amount of trouble. And I'll give you an example. I have a contractor client right now, and they're a wonderful company. He's actually a framing company, so he does all the framing on big like development phases. And his accountant has been with him. She's not an accountant, she's a bookkeeper. Has been with him for about 10 years. And he brought me on to basically oversee his financial picture, I guess, for lack of a better term, to oversee the work that was being done, because he felt that there were some errors. And she doesn't have a complete education. So, to shorten down my answer, bookkeepers are different from accountants. If you hire a bookkeeper, you want to make sure that that person has some education. You want to make sure that they know what they're talking about. And if they're telling you, well, I'll do it for 20 bucks an hour, well, be careful, because you get what you pay for. I'm not exactly sure how to answer how someone who doesn't understand accounting can identify that, but I would ask for references for jobs or former clients, to make sure that their work is correct, it's accurate. It's very, very easy to mess up a set of books in a quick time. So that client that I have, he'd only been in business for about 9 months, and their books were a living disaster. It's taken me 3 months, going on 4 months, to clean it all up. So it can wreak a lot of havoc, which means your number one, your income tax returns are wrong, which, depending upon how big you are, what those sales and stuff look like, can be a huge problem, because you either haven't paid enough taxes or you paid too much. And we all know how the IRS likes to not give your money back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it takes a lot longer to get it back than it does to pay it to them, right? So it's just best to do your due diligence in finding that right person to help you. Don't be afraid of the cost.
Yeah.
You're tripping over dollars to pick up dimes. Don't do that, because it's not a good idea. You want to have someone who knows what they're doing, that can help you. And the other thing is that a good accountant won't just go in and do your numbers and just toss you a report. They'll actually help you understand the report. You want to make sure that they're being transparent, and not to move too far forward, but you also want to make sure that you've got some segregation of duties and internal controls in there, because that's where people also get into trouble. Is these people are smart enough, some of them, to do things that you have no idea that's going on, which means that you're bleeding money because someone's taking it.
Yeah. I've heard some reports lately of people in the bookkeeping department that have embezzled a sizable amount of money. And it's too bad. So that kind of leads me to my next question, would be, how can having a proper accountant or proper accounting person help you with an insurance audit or an audit in general?
Yeah, so if you're audited by an insurance company, which I know a lot of the insurance companies will do, like annually, they'll require you to provide them with information on your financial statements. And if I'm not mistaken, they base a lot of their premium on how much money you made, how much money you brought in. And so if your numbers are wrong, your premiums, you might be paying too much money, or you might not be paying enough, which means, if you have a problem, you're not covered as well as you thought, or you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so, they can help again with the accuracy and just making sure that you're covered as far as making sure that all your stuff is in order, and helping to provide those financial statements to them, answering any questions that they might have, that kind of thing, that that the business owner might not know how to answer.
Sure.
So, and it relieves stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, counting doesn't have to be as intimidating or as overwhelming as a lot of guys think it is. It was overwhelming for me when I first got started, so that's why I hired an accountant to look at my stuff, and he did it from the beginning. But there are multiple accounting softwares. I had to learn them at the beginning. I had to learn, I think Peachtree we started out with, and then that was a little bit too intensive for us, and we've been using QuickBooks ever since. But there are multiple software platforms or solutions that you can use that can help contractors. Do you have any that you recommend that?
Yeah, most of the contractors I've worked with use QuickBooks. So I've used Sage, which I believe is the same thing as Peachtree. But most of the work that I've ever done for people, they've already used QuickBooks. So, but if you had to pick between QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop, I believe it's easier for people to understand the desktop version because they are very different.
Yep. We're online because I sometimes do estimates on the road. And or just need to access information while I'm on the road. And so that's why we've used online. But there are definitely some things we don't like about online. But
it's a hard transition.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how often should contractors be looking at accounting reports, like AP and AR and profit and loss? How often?
Yeah, I would suggest a minimum of monthly.
Okay.
That way you're always in front of a problem.
Yep.
You always know, well, how much money I made. The reason being is that, a lot of things come up in business. You're constantly having to buy materials for your next job. Maybe you need a new piece of equipment. So having that information, and it's essentially, it's like real time, right? So it might just be a week or so, maybe 2 weeks beyond, the end of the prior month. Well, having that information, you can make more informed business decisions on whether or not you can afford to buy that equipment, whether or not, you need to wait a couple of weeks because you got payroll coming up, that kind of thing. It's also a good idea to have, cash forecasting to make sure that you are covered as far as your operating cash to get through, say, the next couple of weeks, maybe the next 3 months. I like to do a 12-week outlook, but then you kind of focus out on 2 weeks to make sure that your cash is flowing properly and that you're not going to get caught with, like a negative in your bank account.
Yep.
So, yeah, to me, they need to do it a minimum of once a month, and make sure that their bookkeeper is on point with getting it to it. Give them a deadline. Say, hey, I need this by the 5th of every month, because holding them accountable is going to get you that report, which can also, when they're under a timeline, it keeps you from getting behind or them getting behind and then, creating another problem.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Sure. Well, cool. We keep hearing rumblings or rumors of maybe a economic downturn in the next year. With the things going on in the presidency right now, there's a lot of uncertainty. And so, what would you say to a business owner that, maybe doesn't have a lot of funds set aside, or maybe has been riding the wave, a really good economy? What would you say to that person for the next 12 months?
Number one, do whatever you can to boost your revenues. Get your marketing, stay in front of people. And first and foremost, you need to set your mind right. So if you talk to a lot of people out there, they're like, oh, the sky is falling, it's falling. No, it isn't. You know, if you have the right mindset, and one of what I'm sure you've heard is a mindset of abundance,
Yep.
it keeps you positively thinking, where if you have that scarcity mindset, that's exactly what you're going to find, a big zero.
Yep.
So number one, you have that positive mindset that there is work out there for me and I'm going to go find it. And then you just do it. You go out and you find the work, you do bids, you know, you do what you have to do. You take action to make that happen. The other thing is that, so let me just tell you, there's two ways that you can increase your profits in your business. Number one is to raise up sales, more revenue. The other one is to cut your expenses. So in my opinion, you're smart to work lean. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So don't have, expenses that you don't need. Don't buy expensive cars, don't buy large pieces of equipment that you're not sure that you absolutely have to have. And if you do have to have it, take a look at different options. Instead of, say, paying cash for it, explore what it would look like to, lease it, to keep as much money in your account as you can. That's the object, is to hold on to enough cash. Don't spend every dime. You have to save for tomorrow. A lot of people right now have learned the hard way, unfortunately, that, I guess I wasn't running my business like a business. I was running it like a bank account, and they got left with nothing.
Yeah.
And so you have to save. You have to save for tomorrow. Put a percentage away. Don't take it all out of the business.
I know some of the mistakes I made early on were, we'd have a rain day or maybe a gap between jobs or whatever, and I'd keep the guys busy in the shop. I need to be clean and stuff needs to happen, but you ain't making any money when the guys are cleaning the shop.
Right.
But I was trying to be nice guy and benevolent and everything, but that was one thing. Another thing was like, we can't find this tool, or we can't find that material that we thought was right there. Oh, we just go buy more, and we just bought stuff instead of being organized and prepared and saying, instead of going buying a new hammer, I know where the hammer is because I took care of it. Being messy can cost you in the long run too. So, because I'm just talking from experience that I had in the past, where I know I spent thousands of dollars because I was just an organizer and efficient. So.
Yeah, and a lot of people are careless if they're not their tools. They don't care.
Yep.
So, that's where you change their mindset, and this is a requirement if you work for me. You take care of my tools. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe they do a weekly, out on Fridays or the last day of their work week, they do an inventory count of all the tools that are on site or something, because they don't just grow legs and walk off. You might lose something here and there, but $75 for something here, 100 over here really adds up at the end of the year. Pretty soon you're looking at a $15,000 balance in that account that you spent that you didn't really need to, because we found it 2 weeks after we lost it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Cool. Well, you did talk about putting away money for a rainy day, and I don't know if you mentioned pay yourself, but I think a lot of contractors forget to pay themselves. But one thing I started many years ago was not just for taxes, but for a little bit of savings and taxes. We set up an account in another bank in another town, and we did automatic transfers to that every week. And when we're doing good in the summer, we might tick that up a little bit, and we get lean in the winter, we'll tick it down a little bit, but we never get rid of it. But I don't keep the numbers. I don't have a debit card on it. I kind of forget about it. And, after a month or two, it just becomes kind of a bill. You get used to it.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, no, $400 a week or $500 a week, whatever it is just getting shuffled away there. And, cause, there was many years ago where come April, I'd be like, oh shoot, I didn't have that money set aside for the taxes. What am I going to do? And set up a payment plan, or you have a rainy day, you don't have a rainy day fund. And so, that's one of the best things I ever did as a contractor. It was just it's so easy to go to the bank right now and just set it up on auto.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, you definitely, that you should be the first person that gets paid.
Yep.
If you're in business and you're not paying yourself, what are you doing?
Yep.
You're not in the business to work for free. That's not the point.
Right.
So you want to make sure that, you're adequate, you've got can I speak today? Adequate capitalization. You have to make sure that you're paying yourself. Because then you're going to just run out and put it on a credit card and charge it back to the company, and then you're building debt. So it's a bad habit. And never run your checkbook for your company in the same as your personal. Always have 2 separate accounts.
Yep.
And leave them completely separate.
Yep. Good advice.
Yeah.
So in closing, any final suggestions for contractors who might need a little accounting help, or?
Kind of like a couple of higher level suggestions that I would give is that when they do hire an accountant and have someone helping them, whether it's an outsourced person or an employee, especially if it's an employee, because they tend to have more access to intimate details, just make sure that you stay involved. Don't just wipe your hands and say, she's taking care of it now. Stay involved, ask questions, because it's the business owner that doesn't know anything about the accounting that leaves them to just, okay, I trust you, go ahead and do whatever. Those are the ones that end up getting hurt the most. So you always want to take an active role in your company. Just ask questions, ask for the reports. If you're not getting them, watch for red flags. When you start I haven't had a chance to get to that yet. Well, so that might be true, but it also might be a flag that why aren't they done? Because they should have been done, So you just have to watch out for, specific things. So stay involved. Another thing that I see often is a company might have a bookkeeper on staff, and then they have a tax accountant. But the bookkeeper is just a bookkeeper. There isn't any higher level person in the office that reviews their work. And so that work goes straight to the tax accountant. Nobody's looked at it. The tax accountant files taxes. That person is not going to do a review of your books to make sure they were accurate before they file those taxes.
Right.
So who's looking at the information on the in-between? Nobody, which means there's a ton of errors in there. And I'm going to guarantee you there's errors, because I've been in business for 11 years, almost 10 years. I have not came across a set of books yet that was correct. So there's always an error in there, and some of them could be pretty substantial. Some of them, maybe it's not worth it, but just make sure that everything's on the up and up. Have that review done. It's a double check, not only to make sure that your books are correct, but to make sure that you don't pay so much on taxes. And, it keeps people honest, and it's just good business, because a smart business owner has their segregation of duties. It's just the way that you should do it. Whether that is with you, the business owner, where you open up checks, you open up the bank statement, and then you hand it to them, you're involved. So it goes back to that being involved. You don't give them signing authority. You sign the checks. Don't give them access to your bank. You keep that. So you have to make sure that you are not opening yourself up to losses, internal losses.
So what kind of questions should you ask a person to make sure you're getting an ethical and honest bookkeeper?
I
had one a few years ago that embezzled. Fortunately, it was only like $800. But if we would have just done a background check, we would have found that she had a spotted background. So, what things can a person do to protect themselves?
Do the background check. That's a good one. They can check references.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one. Trying to think off the top of my head, any other, you can ask them, like when you're interviewing someone, you can ask them, questions like, let me think of a good one. So tell me about a time where you made a mistake and what happened, to make that mistake, how you fixed it. And, just simple questions like that where they can't have a programmed response. They really have to sit and they have to think about it.
Yep.
And so you'll be able to pick up on questions that will help you understand what their ethical line is.
Yep.
And ask them questions, around, well, sometimes my previous bookkeeper, they would push things into the next year, or they'd put it in the back because it saved time. Is that something you'll help me with? And you could just be, testing them. If they say, yeah, sure, then that's a flag.
Yeah.
Because that means that they're going to find a way to hide their own errors.
Yep.
So you might be being a little tricky. You could probably play it up a little bit and ask it in a different fashion, but ask those questions that will set a red flag off for you that they are open to being unethical. You do not want someone like that.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate being on tonight. I know you're pretty busy, and I am too, but we wanted to make this thing happen because this is a struggling area for many contractors, and want to make sure that we talk about some of the things that we don't understand. So
yeah, absolutely. And like I said, before we went live,
yeah.
What you're doing is awesome because there's such a need. I talk to so many people, and they're in that exact spot, exactly what we're talking about today, and they don't know what to do. They're lost. They just have no idea what their next step is on how to get out of whatever it is that they're into, and how to pull out of it, how to fix it. Find some help.
Yep.
Invest in your business. It's what it is. It's an investment. It's not a cost. It's an investment.
I would encourage people, because as soon as they hear accountant, it's like lawyer, doctor, it's like, oh, big dollars. But really, you'll save more money than what you spend by having them involved.
I could probably fairly say that I pay for myself with my clients.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you're good, they will, because they'll have everything, they'll go in, they'll uncover, what's been done incorrectly, or keep you from making errors that would cost you money.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely look at it as an investment rather than a cost.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Donna, thanks for being on tonight. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all your words of wisdom. And so,
yeah, thank you so much. This is great. I'm really glad that you guys are doing this. So I know a lot of people are benefiting from it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Rocket Roof Show podcast. Be sure to subscribe through your favorite podcasting platforms such as iTunes or Google Play to get the latest episodes as they are launched. For more, please follow us on social media or visit our website at rocketroofshow.com. We look forward to joining you here again soon at the next launch.